Hello and welcome. Today I'd like to show you the suspension setup on the RX5. See what sort of modifications had to be done to get that much of lock. You see, it looks like it's more than enough. So yeah, let's begin.
Mają rozmach, skurwysyny.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about the most obvious thing, which are the wheels. They're the custom-made JRs to have just the right amount of offset to give us plenty of clearance to gnaw up against the chassis. But yeah, they're just a set of JRs, no big deal. The fun starts once we turn the wheel the other way and we expose the lock kit. It's their first generation FAT lock kit for RX8. Obviously there is a kit for NC MX5 which has small little differences just to make it work with the car itself. But since I'm using everything from the RX8 into MX5 and it's gonna have RX8 front end anyway, I'd say it won't really make a difference whether I have NC or RX8 lock kit. So yeah, if you go on FATDP website, you might notice that this kit is a little bit different to the one they're selling, since I think they're on third generation of the kit. So yeah, it went through a lot of development, but yeah, we're just gonna stay with this one for now, and we'll see if there'll be a need for a bit of an upgrade. But yeah, now next thing, which you probably noticed already, are the most pristine, highest quality coilovers that I got my hands on, the max speeding rods. They're not the same ones that you get straight from them. I've modified them a little bit just so they'll be somewhat usable for any sort of drifting, since yeah, they're basically bottomed out with the weight of the engine and the whole lot. They weren't even good for anything. So yeah, they're slightly modified with different springs in it, different valving and everything. So yeah, they're alright, I suppose. Next thing, you might remember in the previous episode that said that those inner tie rods out of Nissan Murano were gonna be a perfect fit for the NC steering rack to mate it with the FAT lock kit. Therefore I found a website, a Russian website, I don't know if I should say that. Yeah, apparently those were meant to be the correct size. Unfortunately, they're not much different than the standard ones, NC ones. This one was meant to be M16 as well, it's M14. That means it won't fit FAT tie rod ends. So, came up with an idea to make a little adapter, which is that. Obviously, dimensions are a bit rough. That's not the actual one that we'll be using. But yeah, loads of stuff had to be modified to, well, at least for now, make work. Obviously, since we're adding significant length, even though the car is going to be wider, have a wider track, that's still not enough to compensate for about 20 centimeter longer tie rod end. So that's our first attempt of having a go at it. We basically shortened tie rod end as much as possible just to use the custom piece that we made on the lathe. So yeah, that was the only way to basically make that work. On one end it's female M14 thread, on the outside it's M16, so that perfectly goes into the tie rod ends. And last episode I was showing you that's basically the setup. that we've got going on. That's the NC steering rack that we were using for a bit of experimenting. Because originally those two are pointing up, which would be colliding, well, not this one would be colliding with the crank pulley, which is literally right over here, so it wouldn't work. And the other thing which you might notice, there's the anti-roll bar here, which we're still debating whether we should put up the front or maybe don't. The only issue at the moment is that we'll have to figure out is pretty much lack of space up around here, especially if you look in here. It's a little bit tight to have a bar going up around here, and the thing is, when the engine's inside here, it's up around here, which is just in line. So, well, what we did, first attempt, we've made little spacers like this, but turns out that's a little bit too much, and at full lock it's rubbing against the anti-roll bar. We don't want to really reduce the lock, since it's good to have lock, no? What's the point of having a fancy lock kit if you're limiting the lock? It kind of defeats the whole purpose of having the lock kit. What I'm going to do now, we're still on my first ever modified knuckles on this side, since that was the plan. That's what we're meant to be using. Before that even turned into any sort of competition car, all that has to go out, and we're going to be putting in the suspension bits and pieces, all the from here. So yeah, that's at least the plan for today. Swap that around. And in case you're wondering, where's the engine? Well, the engine is out already. That was a dummy one. But the actual engine is over here. Like, it's still missing a few bits of it, but the inlet manifold is here. The exhaust manifold is still in the car. It's just a matter of a few bolts, boom, 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 out it goes. But yeah, we'll try to bolt up the gearbox first, put the whole thing inside, see how it lines up with the gearbox mounts and everything. We'll obviously have to make the prop shaft again from scratch. Still waiting for the harness, so the seats are still here in there, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll tip away with whatever we've got here. Let's have a go at getting rid of that, shall we? I thought maybe I'll do a little cool time lapse of how to get everything out, but I think a bit of a movie magic will be a better option. So we're ready now to get the FAT lock kit on the other side now, on the driver's side. So yeah, let's do it. And one thing I'll have to take care of before I put the lock kit in, since I still have plenty of room to play around here, is that little lip here. We'll have to bend it in a little bit, the same way it is done up here. The reason for that is when we're gonna have the wheel up in here, we'll have to move it out with caster out towards the front as much as possible, just so it won't be rubbing. That lip will have to go, because I want to make sure that once we have everything in, that won't be the problem. So while I have nothing in the way, I'll give a bit of love with a sledgehammer before we start doing anything else around here. So yeah, now once I got my strut installed, it's time to install the arms, upper, lower, knuckle. But before I do that, there's one thing I have to show you, a little trick to make your life easier in the future. So what we've got here, there are two bolts with eccentric washers. That's one of them is for the back of lower controller, the other one is for the front end of the controller arm. We have two standard bolts for the upper controller, and we have one for the strut mounting to the lower control arm, one that goes across. What you need now is a bit of copper grease. Yeah, once you have a bit of copper grease, just stick your finger in there. Just make sure it gets spread evenly across everywhere. Up around here especially, that's where the bolt gets seized up, and usually you have to cut the arm out or something. That's definitely not something you'd like to do the side of a track, or maybe when you're stuck somewhere trying to get the job done quickly. A quick on and off job turns into a battle with a grinder and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been through that a lot. But bolts tend to snap at the head, and take each bolt and just lube it up. Make sure the copper grease gets everywhere so that there'll be no chance of it seizing up anywhere. And trust me, in the future you'll love it. It'll be so easy to pull everything apart. You won't be risking snapping or stripping the threads. Make sure all the threads are nice and clean, that there's no stripping. If there is, if you see any damage up around the head, or maybe the threads are a bit rough, just bin it, get another one. It'll make your life easy in the future when you're working on the car again, which I'll be definitely working on it, pulling stuff apart or something, so I'd like to make my life easy. As you can see, I had the bolts lubed up and they came out no issues whatsoever. Could pull them out by hand. So yeah, copper grease for the win. So now I've got the lock kit put in roughly. It's not 100% tight because we have to preset it to roughly the setup I'd like to run. So to max out the caster, what I have to do, I have to move this one out like this, so that the head of the bolt is basically pressed against, it's pressed against the chassis here. It's as much out as possible. And over here we have the foremost bolt. Now to max out the camber altogether, we have the rear pushed out, so now we have to move this one in just like that, and now we have to just tighten everything up. So now the rear is pushing out, which moves that forward, and by moving the front in, that also moves the front out, which maximizes the caster. So after that, I'd say if we'll be doing any corrections, we'll be at the back, because the front one will affect camber a lot. So we'll probably leave it like that, and we'll probably just mess around with the rear one to reduce the caster. But the way it is right now, that's preset, it's same as the other side. So once we get it on the tracking machine, we'll be able to align left same with the right and everything, so it'll be exactly 100%. But as of right now, at least it's preset exactly the same as the other side, so we're going to leave it like that for now. We have to put the disc back on, and the caliper and the carrier bracket. So since I've got that sorted, now the only thing is to swap out that tie rod, shorten tie rod, thread it, put on the adapter, screw it in here, roughly adjust this, align it by eye. And the only thing that will be stopping us from aligning it properly will be the engine. We have to put the engine in, lower it, and then see how much we have to cut off the adapters, because as of right now they'll be a little bit too long. So we'll have to shorten it roughly just by eye. I was thinking that's 10 centimeters. We have to shorten it to like 6. But before I do any cutting, because they're very expensive pieces, I want to lower it, see if they have to be maybe longer, because I don't want to cut it and once everything sits, everything starts changing angles and stuff. I don't want it. I don't want to find out that they're actually too short and the wheels will have to be towed in, which is no good for drifting, I suppose. So, so yeah, that's the thing. We're ready to drop the engine back in. We'll lower it, see how's the alignment with the engine in. How much does it change under load when we have the suspension travel? How much bump steer we're gonna have? FET has a bump steer correction. Usually when people are using BMW rack, when the rack sits lower to clear the engine, you flip that upside down so the tie rod is actually lower. That's basically eliminates bump steer then, because everything's in line. But in our case, since it's the standard position and will be lower in the car, obviously we had to turn it back to original position, because otherwise having the bump steer delete will be causing more bump steer. So yeah, we're back to standard setup. Everything should be in line, as you can see, everything there. So yeah, I hope you like the whole series. Hopefully we'll get some more progress done in the next episodes. That's it for now. We have the suspension put together. It's ready to take the engine into the bay. So yeah, I suppose that's about it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you want. Stay on track with the progress. And yeah, see ya.